Hello, I'm Martijn Graat and this is Does Logistics Matter? A podcast on trends and innovations in supply chain and logistics. Answering yes to the question today is Henry Waterfield, founder and CEO of SpotShip. In this episode, we talk about digitization in bulk shipping, how AI can help shipbrokers choose the right ship for their cargo, how it can help bring down carbon emissions across the bulk shipping industry, and what digital innovations are around the corner. Please enjoy my conversation with Henry Waterfield. Henry, welcome to the show.
Hi, Martin. Lovely to see you again.
The first question I always ask my guests is, does logistics matter?
Well, I'd say absolutely, and at the moment it matters more than ever. If you look at the things happening around the world currently, and the impact on people's everyday lives through the disruption of logistics and supply chains, you can see why logistics is so important. Just as an example, the closing down and the reopening of Shanghai port and the impact that had on moving things around the world, and the price spikes with regards to goods because of the increase in container rates, the amount of grain that's currently not coming out of the Ukraine that should be, and the impact that's having on food prices already. Look at fuel prices, what fuel prices are doing at the moment. Try filling up a car at the pump and and not thinking twice about going cycling or going walking instead. And these are all because of supply chains and logistics. If they run smoothly and they run efficiently, people don't notice them. Because people are paying low prices at the pumps, they're paying low prices in the supermarkets, they're paying low prices online for goods that are being shipped around the world. When people notice logistics and notice things are going on, it's generally because there are issues, and it's causing the real issue it causes is in their wallet and in their pocket, because those impacts on supply chains impact prices and impact everyday people.
So how did you get into logistics?
In a very roundabout way. So I did a master's in mechanical engineering at university, and then after that, I totally dropped academia and joined the British Army. And I spent about 6 years in the British Army in the Grenadier Guards. I served all over the world, in Africa, the Middle East, in the Far East, a little bit of time in South America. Really good time, and because it was the Grenadiers, I also spent quite a lot of time in London wearing furry hats and red coats and swanning around. So
Nice.
It was absolutely. So one of the last things I did in the army was the Queen's birthday parade in 2016, which was really good fun. So doing Trooping the Colour was a great send off for my time in the army. And the reason I got into logistics is, as I was leaving the army, I was based in London. I spent some time working at Braemar in an internship, Braemar ACM shipbrokers in London, on the LNG desk. And then after that, got a job in Amazon as a manager in one of their fulfillment centers. So really, that was my exposure to logistics. It was from the shipping side, how commodities moved around the world, and then in the logistics side again, it was with Amazon and that kind of e-commerce type thing. So that was my exposure to e-commerce and logistics. And then in 2019, I started SpotShip, which is a mixture of my time at Braemar and my time at Amazon, which is how can I digitize and improve and make the customer experience better for shipbrokers. So the customer in this case being shipbrokers. Given the amount of data available online with regards to live ship locations, live ship capabilities, etc., how can I make that a super easy thing for someone like a shipbroker to deal with? So rather than having to go through huge numbers of calculations every day, swim through swamps and swamps of data, can I just make clear, clinical, quick decisions where a computer is able to filter out all of the unnecessary data for me, and I end up swimming above all of it, and could just be presented with the data that I need to see. So that's kind of my route into logistics. So started out man management in the British Army, a small amount of time in a shipbrokers in London, some time doing logistics with Amazon, and then starting my own company in 2019, trying to do digitizing for shipbrokers. So technology that enhances the shipbrokers day to day.
Well, a great story, and I guess that if you are in the military, I mean, if there's one area where logistics is absolutely key, it's in the military. I mean, you don't want to be the guy sitting there without, bullets or bandages or something critical when you're in an actual war scene. Um,
Absolutely, and as an infanteer, the unfortunate the unfortunate output of that is you end up in a situation where you're carrying everything you need, which is about 60 or 70 kilograms on your back at any one time.
wow,
So
yeah,
you don't run out of stuff. But what's incredible is that's that only lasts you maybe 24 hours, maybe even only a few hours, depending on what happens.
yeah.
So they just pile it up, and you're expected to carry it all. But absolutely, logistics is. Was it Napoleon that said an army marches on its stomach? And food and water is only one part of the logistics battle in the military.
Yeah, sure, sure. Um, you mentioned you mentioned starting your own company. You were talking about large amounts of data and about computers, which actually brings us to the subject that you wanted to talk about for this episode, which is the digitization in logistics, and then in the ocean freight or on the shipping side of things, to be specific. Looking at the way ships move across the ocean and combining that with large amounts of data and digitization, what trends and developments are you seeing?
Absolutely, and it's a space that's ripe for digitization. And I'm talking specifically about bulk shipping at the moment. So containers have seen
Hmm.
a lot of startups, a lot of digitization, a lot of very effective companies come into the space in the last 10 or so years. And
Yeah,
it's easy to see why containers and bulk shipping are different challenges. When you look at the lean startup model, the container is the perfect vessel for a lean startup model. You buy one container, or you hire, or you rent a container, and then you sell the
yeah,
space on that container, and that is you proving the business case for your model. That funds you to buy two containers. That funds you to buy four. That funds you to buy eight, and you build a business this way. With
yeah,
regards to bulk shipping, it's a much harder challenge for companies like Spotship to get into because of either if you're going to work on the lean startup model, you buy or rent a ship, which is millions of dollars to buy a ship, or depending on what freight rates are doing, it's kind of 10, 15,000 plus dollars a day. Or you have a cargo that you work, and that could be 20, $30 million worth of cargo. So these are all
yeah,
things that are just not in the space of a standard startup. They're astronomical sums of money. And with regards to the lean startup, it's all about testing a minimum product. If it fails, moving on to something else. If you put if you buy a ship and then your hypothesis fails and then you need to buy another ship, you're already costing investors tens of millions of dollars, and they'll be very unhappy with what you've done to start
yeah.
with. Um, with the amount of data that's currently available in shipping, the issue that a lot of people have is almost kind of data overload. So you think with the introduction of AIS to prevent collisions at sea, that gives people a huge amount of insight into
Hmm.
where vessels currently are, where they're going, what they've done historically. And then you think about just in that space, every single vessel has a different capacity, a different optimum engine operating speed, different length, different breadth, different draft, etc. Ports have all these varying restrictions. How do you solve the problem of the and I'm just talking about the bulk industry here, of the circa 50,000 ships that are afloat at any one time? Um, which one is the optimum ship to work a specific cargo? And if you're working in let's say an example would be short sea coasters in the dry sector. and let's say there's a few thousand of those at sea at any one time. Which one is the optimum ship to select for working a cargo? Of the owners that you know, which ones are willing to work specific cargoes? For example, if you've got a grain clean ship, you don't want to be taking scrap metal. Where does that information come from? But also, which ships are available for loading? There might be a ship off the coast of the port you're interested in loading a cargo, but do you know if that ship's actually available for hire, or if it's currently booked by someone else? So it's a constant challenge for the broker to understand what ships are available for them to work.
Yeah.
Of the ships that are available to work, which ones are suitable for the cargoes they want to move, and which owners or operators of those ships are willing to move that specific cargo. And all of that requires an enormous amount of data. Very little of that data changes. If you think, a vessel doesn't really change in what it does. The name might change, it might change operator or owner, but a kind of a vessel stays as a fairly static entity. What changes is where it will next be available and when. And the way this information is presented to the brokers is they get these things called position reports, which, for example, let's call it the ship. I don't know, Pink Floyd, MV Pink Floyd. Just looking at your T-shirt. So the Pink Floyd is currently off the coast of the UK in the North Sea. And you may be looking for a cargo you're moving from Harwich in the UK to Amsterdam, let's say.
Yeah.
But that ship is now actually going to Helsinki, and it will be opening in Helsinki on the 11th of June. So you'd get a position report from the operator to say, this ship, the MV Pink Floyd, is opening in Helsinki on the 11th of June. So that now gives you the ability to say you have a ship available for hire in Helsinki on the 11th of June.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you happen to have any cargoes in the Baltic that are looking to go elsewhere, that's when you can then start matching those up. So what we've done to try and solve the big data problem is we've created what's called an email parser. So it's a bit of AI technology that runs all of these position reports through from the owners, and puts them into a database that's like a smart searchable database for them as our basic product. And what that does is it absorbs all of this information, puts it in a database for them. It's easy to deal with if you have 5 or 6 position reports a day, but some of the people that are clients of ours have, thousands of position reports coming through on a daily basis. So we're constantly updating in their position reports what ships are available and where, what are the characteristics of those ships, and what are those ships willing to take. So when it comes to a broker taking an order from a charterer, getting a cargo that they need to move, rather than going through their inbox, or if they've moved it all into Excel, they can boot up our system and say, I need to move, let's say, 10,000 tons of steel from South Coast Finland to North Coast Spain, anywhere between the 12th and the 15th of June. And so they can boot up their system and say, I need a ship that can do this. And it will go, okay, you've got the MV Pink Floyd is in Helsinki. It will be available from the 11th. It can hit the Laycan time. And so that will be able to work it. So it just gives you the ability to make decisions more quickly without having to go through thousands of emails or kind of spend 3 or 4 hours a day uploading these positions into an Excel spreadsheet that you then have to go through.
Because that's how it's done in most cases.
So in lots of cases, yes. So my experience when I was broking and one of our employees, Federica, spent almost 10 years as a tanker broker. It is spending a lot of time uploading this data to Excel, and then actually finding that you're not utilizing the data that you put into Excel in any sensible way. So that you're spending a lot of time generating position lists, then doing very little with them. So you're kind of, you're wasting time that you could otherwise be doing trying to gain more business contacts. And then when you have the data there, you're not searching it in an enhanced way. You're just kind of doing basic Control F style functions to find keyword matches.
Yeah.
So it's it's a lot of time spent for not necessarily a perfect solution. So the idea is can you have a slightly more broad search? So if I was looking for a ship in Helsinki, I'd find the Pink Floyd. So if I typed in Helsinki on a search in Excel, I'd find the MV Pink Floyd. If I was looking for something that was in South Finland, um, I wouldn't find the MV Pink Floyd because it's in Helsinki, not necessarily South Finland. Whereas we're able to do kind of more like a speed distance time calculation to say that this is proximate to where you're trying to search from, and it's within certain parameters. So you can run the search to say, I'm looking for something with a maximum of half a day ballasting, so steaming empty, which is
Mm-hmm.
it's the last thing you want to do is have ships traveling empty, because it's a waste of money for the charterer, it's a waste of fuel, it's bad for the environment, it's all of these kind of things. So a maximum of half a day ballasting, and then something that can hit a laycan time between the 12th and the 16th, so something that is open before or during those times.
Mm-hmm.
So it's running this search in a slightly broader way. So you're capturing all the data that you already have, and what we've introduced as well, which is something that some of the clients that have been working with our system who don't necessarily have quite as many contacts in the industry, so they're not receiving thousands of positions a day, they may be receiving 100 or so. It is
Mm-hmm.
what happens if they don't have a result. So if they're looking to work a cargo in a specific area, what happens if they don't have a result? So we've got a database of a relatively up-to-date database, but it's constantly changing, so it's very hard to stay on top of things. Who are the owners or the operators of the ships in an area? So they can then just search for if they know they're moving a certain amount of dry cargo, let's say, they can search for a specific size of ship within that sector and see geographically where all of them are in the world, and then just hunt down the ones that are local to where they're looking, and then reach out directly using the contacts that we have on in our system. The ultimate idea of this is, can we reduce the amount of ballasting or sailing empty that ships do when it comes to moving cargoes? Because currently the accepted rate for bulk carriers and tankers in the industry is they run at about 80% efficiency. So at any one year they'll spend about 20% of their time steaming empty. And that's the best use cases. So the top of the tree are at 80%, and a lot of them are not hitting that. And if you think about the amount of just in CO2 and environmental thoughts, that's about 110 tons of CO2 a day by
Yeah.
all of those ships. So if you can reduce the amount of steaming and increase the efficiency, that takes a lot of CO2 out of the atmosphere. If you think about the number of ships you'd need to move the same quantity of goods around the sea, it's vastly lower. So we had a look at some of the numbers, and we said if we can reduce that 20% number to 15%, you're looking at about a 90 million tons of CO2 annually saved, which it's an astronomically large figure. So it's an interesting challenge, and if it can be solved, it would be a really good one to solve.
Yeah, definitely. It's a broad problem, right? In logistics, I mean, it's the sea is no different than the road. I mean, the trucks are. I think they have a fill rate of 50 or 60%. So in that sense, 80% is actually pretty good.
Yeah, and this is the best case scenario. So if you imagine some of the VLCC crude carriers, they're working at about 50% as well, because they'll go from
Ah, yeah.
one terminal to discharge, back to the terminal to load, back to to discharge. So the top end are working about 80%, and that's thinking about, for example, some of the
Okay.
smaller ships that are going around the Mediterranean and moving smaller cargoes. So it can vary. It can vary enormously, but there are definite ways that it can be improved. It's just a case of showing people the benefit of that improvement, And given the cost of fuel and bunkering at the moment, if there are ways of reducing the cost to the owner, which also reduces the cost to the charterer, and therefore reduces the cost to the end consumer, that benefits absolutely everyone.
Yeah. So also in bulk shipping, there's a huge increase in attention on sustainable ways of moving cargo from A to B. Are Because usually, and I'm uh, you're the specialist. I don't know much about bulk shipping yet, but you're teaching me as we go.
Trying to teach.
In looking at trucks and other, yeah. So looking at, for example, freight moving by truck or by parcels, you need the consumer. You actually need a consumer or a customer, if it's business to business, to be willing to pay a premium, because usually shipping something in whatever through whatever modality, if it's the greener it gets, the more expensive it is. And I'm guessing that's the same in bulk shipping.
Yes, so I imagine the part of shipping that's most similar to trucking would be containers. And the
Yeah.
metaphor I use with containers is it's more like a train line um, rather than I use train line rather than taxi, rather than truck, but it could be anything else. And bulk shipping,
Hmm.
I use the metaphor as a taxi. So a container ship will offload, let's say, 20% of its containers at one port, pick up more, go to the next port, go to the next port, go to the next port, and it's kind of a set route where it drops off and picks up at every
Yeah.
single port. Whereas a bulk ship, most of them take one cargo. A few of the chemical carriers take part cargoes, and just try and fill up all the tanks where they can. Um, but it's more like a taxi where you go and pick up one person, you drop them off somewhere, and then you hunt around looking for the next person to go and pick up. So
Yeah.
it's kind of it's yes, it's the more expensive way of doing things, but if you think about shipping, it's because you're moving so much quantity of commodity. It's economies of scale in that regard, because the amount of commodity you can fit on one of the larger ships is thousands of times what you could fit into a truck. Just because they're so much bigger, and it's cheaper to move things whilst they're floating on the sea rather than drive them around.
So looking at sustainability and cutting down in carbon emissions, the largest gains for now in shipping are in optimizing the fill rate.
Yeah, yes and no. So people are looking at different fuels. So people are looking at ammonia and whether hydrogen could be used as a
Yeah,
fuel.
hydrogen. Yeah.
So those are really exciting things that people are looking into. My thoughts on this are that's really interesting. Are we going to have nuclear ships in the future? Are we going to have hydrogen powered ships? The issue is that the lifespan of a ship is about 27 years. So if you think about the cost of building a ship, those
Hmm.
ships stay in the industry for a very long time. So we see ships from the early 1980s that are still operating today, and there are likely ones that are even older. So the trickle through into the industry of ships that are burning the new fuels is going to be a slow process. So in the
Hmm.
meantime, the question is, what can we do to make the ships that are going to be around for at least another 20 years more efficient? And the way to make them more efficient is to spend more of their time laden with cargo and less of their time steaming with no cargo, so ballasting. And it's kind of, you can either put all of your eggs into the basket of let's get clean fuels, but then what are we going to do with all the ships that burn bunker fuel? Which, if you look at they call it the NOx and the SOx, the nitrous oxides, the sulfur oxides that get burnt in ships. They are very, very polluting beasts. This isn't like the unleaded fuel you put in your car at the pump. This is all
Yeah.
of the good stuff gets taken out of the crude oil, and the rest, the stuff that's left, gets put into ships. Is kind of what people say. Um,
Yeah.
so it's highly polluting fuel, and you can't turn around to the industry that keeps the world moving and say, by the way, of the 50,000 ships at sea at the moment, 48,000 don't burn ammonia or hydrogen, so they're no longer compatible. You're not allowed to use them anymore. You have to keep the world moving. So they are going to be around for a long time. Um, and so it's how do we make them as efficient as possible, whilst introducing more efficient and cleaner fueled ships as we go forwards.
Thank you for explaining that, Henry. Uh, Looking at digitization and sustainability. So you talked about bringing down carbon emissions through optimizing. Are there other ways in which digitization can optimize bulk shipping?
Absolutely. So sticking with CO2 for the time being,
Yeah,
we've built a CO2 calculator. We actually received some British government funding to build it. So they had a clean maritime demonstration competition for green tech and green innovation in shipping. So we were lucky enough
nice.
to receive a small amount of funding for that. We built a CO2 calculator that the aim of the calculator is to show you how much CO2 any ship will generate on any given voyage. So if I have three separate ships that are able to work cargo, currently our system can show you the economics of each one of those ships. How much cargo each one will be able to load, what we'd expect the freight rates to be. What we're hoping to do with the CO2 calculator is to also give the environmental impact of them. So how much CO2 are you going to be generating quantum total? And then also how much CO2 per ton of cargo moved are you going to be creating too? And this is a really interesting challenge when it comes to some of the larger commodity players who are talking about net zero shipping and minimizing their impact
Mm-hmm.
on the environment. This gives people the ability to say, well, this is what we are creating with this specific shipping. Therefore, either they can offset that to zero or offset it compared with what would be the most efficient way of moving it. Um, and also optimizing what they're doing with regards to selecting specific ships. What's been really useful for this project actually is we got most of our data working with the EU MRV database, but we also got a lot of data from owners and operators of ships giving us individual voyage data. So not only could we understand how people perform environmentally with their CO2 aggregated over a year, but also the impacts of smaller things on specific voyages, such as what are the impacts of weather on fuel consumptions, what are the impacts of tides and steaming at different speeds, etc. That all comes out in the individual data. So we're actually looking to work with more operators at the moment to get more voyage data to enhance our calculator, because apart from anything else, not only is it good for brokers and charterers because you can see CO2 for
Mm-hmm.
future voyages, but then people who have who are operating ships can also use it for their own forecasting of CO2 generation and also fuel consumption. So if you're looking at running routes, for example, cruise liners would be a good use case, or container ships. You can get an accurate model of how much fuel you'll be using, how much CO2 you'll be generating, and then you can optimize where you'll be going to bunker, etc.
Oh, and it actually adds a completely different reason for choosing a ship, because three ships could be approximately this. I mean, this approximately the same cost, and then if one really excels in the sustainability of how they move that cargo, how should I say this? If one ship has the lowest carbon emissions, you can actually choose that one.
Absolutely. And when we were looking at the data in the EU MRV database, we thought we'd found the super ship, which was hyper efficient with the amount of CO2 it had generated. But actually, it turned out that they'd reported quite poorly on their data. And they're about 8,000 hours in a year, and apparently this ship had spent 40,000 hours at sea. So they had a slight issue with potentially putting too many zeros in. So we thought we'd found a super efficient ship, but unfortunately it was a reporting error. But this exactly so. This will be able to help people enhance enhance the visibility of the most efficient ships and really help push those in the industry.
Yeah, I had no idea DeLorean also made ships. Yeah, they did. Okay. So, well, it's great news, and it's really nice that you guys got support from a government fund as well. And it's great to see to hear from a company that's really trying to bring down the carbon footprint. I guess, I mean, it's what we need. Uh, if we would look to the future, and then in terms of sustainability or any other aspect, what next steps do you see for bulk shipping and for digitization?
Absolutely. So, from my perspective, that people talk about data being the future, and I think that's absolutely true in the case of shipping, as with almost every other industry, and shipping almost more so. If you think about the space that Spotship operates in with shipbroking, so when a cargo is, how you make the decision to move a specific cargo around the world, that point in time is a very exciting time to capture that data. And if you think about the impact of that specific piece of knowledge on lots of other industries and lots of other kind of parallel industries to shipping, it's a really exciting place to be. So we call that the nexus of shipping. So the way I see the future of shipping being really is a kind of a race to see who can capture that point and gain most ground in that point. If you think about the potential impacts of knowing how much of a commodity is being moved around the world at any one time, if you work as a commodity trader, if you have access to that information 3 or 4 weeks in advance of that commodity actually landing in a port, you're going to be a more successful commodity trader than someone that doesn't. If you work in the insurance industry and you're looking at
Yeah.
insuring cargoes on ships, if you know when someone has fixed a ship with a cargo, you then want that information to say, can I now insure that cargo and kind of make money that way. If you're looking at the green economy and you're offsetting carbon emissions generated by shipping, knowing who is moving a commodity around the world, what ship they're using, how much CO2 they're generating, that gives you the insight on who needs to be paying for the carbon offset credits, etc. on that thing. If you are financing vessels, if you're looking at building new vessels, knowing how vessels have performed historically gives you the ability to say how much that vessel should be valued at, how much it would be worth on the open market. Is it a time that you should be building new vessels? Is it not a time you should be building new vessels? Having access to all of that data allows you to really enhance the decisions around so many markets that historically have been in this space, but haven't been able to use this data. Now this data is available. It's going to be very exciting to see what the use case is for that data, how it can help parallel industries to the logistics and the shipping industries, and also how it enhances the shipping and the logistics industries too.
Henry, thank you very much for your vision of the future and for teaching me a thing or two on bulk shipping. Uh, Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks, Martin. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Does Logistics Matter? For more on trends and innovations in supply chain and logistics, visit our blog on logisticsmatter.com. If you want to be a guest on this podcast, please send an email to martijn@logisticsmatter.com. That's martijn@logisticsmatter.com. Or connect to me via LinkedIn and send me a message. This podcast was produced by Dimitri Vleugel. The music is based on a sample by Ruggerman and produced by Michael Spengler. This episode was supported by Spotship. Spotship is the shipbroker's digital assistant. Utilizing powerful AI and machine learning tools, they enable shipbrokers to leverage their data at incredible speed. For more information, visit spot-ship.com. That's spot-ship.com.